Right, okay, good. Right, good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending this meeting of the Planning Committee. I hope you can all hear me. I'm the chair, I'm Caleb Tomlinson. I'm the councillor for Bamber West. Committee members and members of the public, I need to advise you, you are being streamed live to YouTube. And if you're attending the meeting because you wish to speak on an item, I will invite you to come to the microphone, press the speak button, introduce yourself, and then you will have 4 minutes. You will be timed, and when your time's up, I will stop you. Members of the committee, have you all received your update sheets this evening? Yeah. Good, okay. If you've got mobile phones with you, can you switch them off, either off or onto silent, please? Now, usually voting is undertaken on each item using the electronic system, but the electronic system has failed us this evening, so we will be using the good old-fashioned show of hands. Okay? We're not anticipating a fire drill this evening, so if you do hear an alarm, there is a fire somewhere and the exits are behind you. Right, okay, so I'll ask everyone to introduce themselves, starting with the young lady on my left.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Tasneem Safdar. I'm the Legal Services Team Leader and I'll be assisting the committee tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, Councillor Mal Donoghue, Vice Chair of the committee and also Councillor for Seven Stars Ward.
Ben Story, Democratic Services Officer.
Councillor Hunter, Bamber East.
Councillor Watson, Camp Green and Gregson Lane.
Chris Lomax, Waltley Dale East.
Good evening, Councillor Phil Smith, New Longton and Hutton East.
Good evening, Councillor David Shaw, representing Howcombe Priory Ward, substituting for Councillor Harry Hancock.
Councillor Peter Molyneux, Salisbury and Walton Ward. I'm substituting for Councillor Yates this evening. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Will Adams and I represent Middlefirth and Penwitham.
Good evening all, I represent Longton and Hutton West, John Hesketh.
Good evening everyone, Councillor James Flannery and I represent Middlefirth and Penwitham.
Good evening everyone, I'm Councillor Mary Green, Councillor for Midge Hall and Moss Side.
Good evening, Debbie Roberts, Development Management Team Leader.
Good evening, Janice Crook, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Stephen Brown, Planning Manager.
Good evening, I'm John Harrison, Interim Director of Planning and Development.
All right, thanks everyone. Do we have apologies for absence, please, Ben?
Yes, Chair. So we've got Councillor Barry Yates, substituted by Councillor Peter Molyneux, Councillor Harry Hancock, substituted by Councillor David Shaw, and Councillor Caroline Moon. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks for that. Do we have any declarations of interest? Okay. I've read the minutes. I have them in front of me for the last meeting. I agree with them. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair, I'll second them.
Councillor Donoghue, thank you. Can we go to the vote? Obviously, if you're a sub and you weren't here, don't raise your hands. So can we go to the vote on the minutes, please? Taz?
Thank you, Chair. So those are confirmed.
Okay, Stephen, do we have some appeal decisions?
Yes, we do, Chair. Thank you. We've got 2 to report tonight. The first relates to Lynbrook on Dobb Lane in Walmer Bridge, which is a detached dwelling house set within the green belt. And there was 2 appeals in respect to the property. One related to the refusal of planning permission for a building that had already been constructed. And the second was in respect of an enforcement notice that we served on it. Basically, the building exceeded 4 metres in height. It was within the curtilage, constructed of metal cladding with polycarbonate roof lights and more the scale of a barn, really, to look at. The inspector concluded that the development is inappropriate in the green belt and would reduce openness and be harmful to the character and appearance of the area. In dismissing the appeals, we were also given a partial award of costs as there had been unreasonable behaviour from the appellants, resulting in unnecessary or wasted expense by ourselves. So that was a good result to appeals dismissed. And the second one relates to Duxbury's Garden Centre off Chainhouse Lane. Again, the site is in the Greenbelt. And this application was retrospective for the retention of a compound in connection with a traffic management company, including porta cabins for offices, storage, associated parking, and it was all enclosed by a 2-metre palisade fence. The inspector concluded that the use was inappropriate in the Greenbelt and considered that very special circumstances didn't exist to justify it. In dismissing the appeal, he gave substantial weight to the harm to Greenbelt and the significant weight to the harm to the character and appearance of the area. As this is retrospective, and if the appellant doesn't work with this, then obviously we'll need to proceed with enforcement in respect of this one. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Okay, items 6 and 7. The applicant, Caddick, has requested that these two applications are withdrawn from the agenda for tonight's meeting. Caddick advised that the Phase 1 construction activities at the site have been blighted recently with the spate of arson and burglary attempts. The project is now entering into an important stage of the construction programme, and Caddick want to focus entirely on appraising and doubling down on the security measures at this time and ensure their handover to the incoming tenant will be seamless without any other distraction. Secondly, the Phase 1 planting scheme, which has been procured, is to be imminently commenced, and Caddick wish to ensure that the proposed landscaping improvements they are now proposing for approval in the Phase 2 applications is the optimum solution, which can be investigated as the other planting is going on. Accordingly, at my discretion as Chair, I have agreed to withdraw the items from the agenda to be discussed at a future meeting. Do I have any questions? Oh, okay. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8. This application has also been withdrawn and will not be debated at committee tonight. Prior to the meeting, the council received notification of an appeal for non-determination from the applicant. As such, a decision cannot be made by this committee, and the planning inspectorate will now be responsible for making the decision. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Not a question, really just a comment that I, like most of my colleagues here, have probably spent, and I know I have spent, a day and a half this week reading these papers. And it's more than disappointing that all of us here will have spent that amount of time when we could have been doing other things, I think, with our time, which are just as important at the moment. And obviously the officers, the amount of work that's gone into producing these papers is significant. We reread them for a day and a half or 2 days in a week, but officers work on them for weeks and weeks and weeks. And just to withdraw them at the last minute, it is what it is, Chair. So we'll, at some stage, something will be coming back to us, I'm sure.
Yeah, just to clarify, Councillor Smith, she hasn't withdrawn. She's appealed to the the building inspector in Bristol, and they will now make the decision. It's out of our hands because we deferred it. It was non-determined, and it's out of our hands completely now. So we'll just move on with however that ends up. Okay, let's move on then to item number 9, land east of Reynard Close, Longton. We're back to this one, Debbie.
Thanks, Chair. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, this site refers to the central section of allocated housing site V, which is governed by policy D1 of the local plan. The western area is already developed. That's Reynard Close and Auburn Avenue. That was 2006 to 2014, so relatively recently. The eastern side remains undeveloped. To the south is agricultural land and Hole Pool that spans the southern boundary, and in the north a residential on Rymer Grove. Site V is part of a larger housing allocation, local plan sites V, M and X, which in combination support development of 211 dwellings circa over 5 years. It's fairly open land bound with trees and hedges. It abuts Longton settlement, and it's a short distance from Longton's district centre, which is identified with a yellow star at the top. There's a tree preservation order in the top northeast boundary, top right hand corner, but there are no public rights of way through or on the site, and it's a flood zone 1. This is the same site in 2013, but it just shows the western section undeveloped, which is now Auburn Avenue and Reynard Close. That's this one here. Okay, an early scheme's been approved for 14 detached self-build dwellings. This is a different developer altogether, and the application before you now is for 34 dwellings with associated works. The access remains as approved off Reynard Close in the west, which is a small spur of 2 properties off Auburn Avenue. This estate road, which is a T-shape, cul-de-sacs at either end, it's a natural extension of that small spur. Parking on site overall is to adopted standards, and vehicle charging points are secured for every property. Permission was granted in October 2017 for improvement of Longton Hall Court and Chapel Lane Junction to enable all sites V, M and X. Now that's roughly here where my cursor is. It's not on the plan. That permission's expired, but officers were concerned anyway that permeability through the 3 sites would end up with a rat run to and from School Lane once all 3 had been completed. There are also land issues which prevent this access. So in reality, the only current access for this allocation is from Reynard Close. Lancashire County Council have no objections subject to conditions, and overall access and parking arrangements are considered acceptable. As I say, the principle of development's already been established by the earlier approval for housing and by the local plan allocation. This application is for 34 residential units in a mix of terraced, detached and apartment dwellings. Now, the apartments resemble dwellings rather than being typical blocks of flats. Materials respect the adjacent housing development, and there would be 1 to 6 bedroom houses, 2 and 2 stories with loft accommodation. Height reflects the adjacent sites at between 8.3 and 9 metres, and the approved scheme averaged 10.5 metres, so it's a reduction on what we've approved before. PV panels are proposed on all properties in line with the council's sustainability agenda. In terms of density, it works out at roughly 23 dwellings per hectare. The earlier 14-house scheme was 9.3 dwellings per hectare, which is really low in a borough where the average is 35. The NPPF stresses importance of efficient use of land by way of higher housing development. However, the surrounding estates are approximately 22 dwellings per hectare, and the council's latest housing land supply statement confirms that the remainder of Site V, which is this section plus the section that's not been developed or included, is expected to deliver 40 units equating to around 15 dwellings per hectare. So this proposal directly reflects what was requested by residents at earlier committees, which is a reduced density. It imitates the density of the existing estate surrounding, and it accords in officers' opinion with the NPPF standards, which are to elevate the suggested standard of the housing land supply and increase density. Landscaping, we have public open space adjacent to Hull Pool, which is here. Hull Pool isn't at this point a main river line, it's just a brook, and whilst it's minimal, it is considered adequate for a site of this size. There is currently no formal public access or recreational value to the land, but it is recognised that it offers some limited visual amenity. In recognition of that, hard and soft landscape materials and layout relate effectively with and respect that of adjacent estates. Landscaping overall retains where possible the existing natural environment, and it's considered acceptable. We also have 3 contributions from this site. We have a public open space contribution payment towards upgrade of Longton playing fields. We've got a fully compliant affordable housing offer, 30%. We've got 10 units, and we would have community infrastructure levy on this, which wasn't on the 14 unit scheme because they were all self-built, so still wasn't required. Just a couple of photographs now. We've got the existing street scene, large 2- and 3-storey units in very similar design. In design terms, and in density, it's considered compliant, and it complements the wider area well, we think. This is the view from the main site facing west from Rymer Grove towards the cul-de-sac in the north. Yeah, it's gone. I do apologise. 3 or 4 of my slides have disappeared off the between getting from me to here. They've disappeared. So the slides were views of the estate. Let me go there. Okay. Okay, the slides I had were views of this estate on the right-hand side from different angles, but you get the perspective. The site itself is surrounded by residential on 2 sides, on the western side and the northern side, and by green space on the eastern and southern. The eastern side would be developed in due course. We consulted 185 neighbours. 30 letters of representation have been received, 29 in objection and 1 neutral, plus a petition of 48 in objection. A lot of the signatures to the petition sent individual letters as well, so there is some duplication. They're all reported in the main report. I'm not going to go through them, there's a lot of it. But we've no statutory objections subject to conditions. On balance, the issue for consideration isn't whether the site is suitable for housing development. That assessment's been made and it's found sound during the examination of the local plan. The principle of development subject to all material considerations being acceptable is established. Determination tonight is whether those material considerations are acceptable, and in officer's opinion, subject to conditions they are, and this proposal is fully policy compliant. It delivers a compliant, sustainable development as a natural extension to Longton's urban area. It includes affordable housing in an area of high value property with local need, and there is no statutory objection. Now, the recommendation in front of you, there's a typo in the middle of it. It should read, recommend approval with decision delegated to the director, chair and vice chair, or head of service it will be, chair and vice chair now, and upon completion of a section 106 agreement relating to affordable housing and public open space. The reference to completion of public consultation, I beg your pardon, is a typo, so if that can be taken out. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your detailed report, Debbie. Right, we have 4 members of the public who wish to speak in objection to this application. Do we have a Carmel Hall, please? Good evening, Carmel. If you press the speak button, introduce yourself, you will then have 4 minutes, okay? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carmel Hall and I live at 1 Reynard Close. I'm speaking on behalf of the local residents group with regard to this application. We've objected to this planning application on the grounds of lack of meaningful consultation, density and traffic. I will speak about density and Michael and Paula will speak on traffic and consultation respectively. I'm sorry to say that we've been here before. In fact, this will be the 3rd time in 2 years we've attended planning committees and spoken about applications for this site. At the planning committee in April 2021, an application to build 33 dwellings on this site was deferred. with the developer guided to come back with a more considered proposal in respect of layout and density. We are now faced with an application to build 34 dwellings. Density was a major issue for our local community then, and it remains so now. The proposed density for this development significantly exceeds that on Auburn Avenue and Reynard Close and all surrounding estates, a notable 51% increase. This massing of properties is therefore out of keeping with the visual character of the surrounding residential areas and of that of Longton in general. If the same density adopted on the proposed development, there will be 20 dwellings as opposed to the 34 proposed. We know and we understand that there are borough-wide guidelines for density levels. However, we respectfully request that consideration is given to the fact that Longton essentially is a village and that density levels are maintained at a comparable level to the surrounding estates. We believe it is unfair to make comparison with average borough-wide density levels. The layout of the proposed development is an improvement on previous applications, but is spoiled by the number of dwellings proposed. It is very evident from the site plan that houses will be extremely close to one another, resulting in overbearing, light issues and loss of amenity for local residents whose houses run parallel to or close to the site. A reduction in density would enable houses to be further spaced and consequently of a less overbearing nature and more in keeping with neighbouring estates. Furthermore, a reduction in density will result in less traffic and ease parking problems and provision on the site. Car parking was a key concern for us in 2021, especially with regard to on-street and footway parking, and it remains so with this current application. We consider this proposed application breaches policy G17 and B1 of the local plan. In conclusion, back in April 2021, an application to build 33 dwellings was deferred. 2 years later, it feels like we're back where we started, but with more dwellings proposed. When considering the first application for this site, a councillor on the planning committee stated that developers come and go, but residents have to live day by day with the consequences of the planning application. Accordingly, we respectfully ask you to defer this application and guide the developer to reconsider the density of this site, taking into consideration local residents' needs. Thank you for listening to our concerns.
Thanks for that, Carmel. I agree. We have been here before. I've been here. This is my third time, so and well done. 3 minutes 59 seconds. All right. Thanks very much for that, Carmel. All right. Do we have a Michael Fish? Okay, Michael. Once again, you have 4 minutes.
My name is Michael Fish. I'm the resident and owner of number 1 Auburn Avenue, which sits directly adjacent to the proposed development. I would like to follow on from Carmel's topic of density. What is clear is that the developer is operating in the extremes of what could feasibly fit on site. The extremes being where, if approved, could be maximised. Whilst there are many improvements in this proposal from 2021, no matter what is done to improve appearance and reduce any overbearing nature, there is one thing that can't be solved with the approach of squeezing in the maximum number of properties, and that is traffic. In a different surrounding, the density levels may not cause so much an issue, but this is not a normal location, and the existing road infrastructure is not adequate. 80 residential dwellings currently access via School Lane onto Old School Drive. The addition of 34 more dwellings, one more than previously rejected, represents an increase of 43%. That's at least 43% more traffic. The existing and proposed development has one single access point into School Lane, and this is the access point to School Lane that poses a major issue. After Liverpool Road itself, School Lane is probably the busiest road in the village, with many of the village's amenities sitting on it. There is St Andrew's Church, The church has no car park, so School Lane becomes the car park. There's the Women's Institute, the school, the nursery, the park, the football fields, the VM club, the tennis club, the bowling club, and the residential home. Then, of course, there's Church Road chambers, shops and offices. These all use School Lane for access and parking. School Lane is actually a road of restricted access. During any busy time, that may be school drop-off or pick-up, Mrs Brown, the head teacher, has urged parents to use this as a one-way route to alleviate congestion and improve safety. When there is something on at the church, or the football matches at the weekend, or any of the other things, it is extremely difficult to use School Lane for any type of access. This makes it a dangerous place and has resulted in a number of accidents. When the site first went to planning and the proposed development of 33 properties, one less than this proposal, was overturned, Councillor Graham Gooch nailed it when he said, School Lane is not a lane, it's a busy, overloaded thoroughfare. 2 points to note. Firstly, the traffic report states the additional development will generate 20 car journeys each morning and evening. This number is not a reflection on what reality will be. With 34 more houses, including 24 of them 4, 5 and 6 bedroom dwellings. In fact, the most popular house type on the development is the Middleton, which is a 6-bedroom property. It wouldn't take Einstein to work out that there is clearly going to be a large volume of car ownership and of people commuting to a place of work on a daily basis. So where does the figure of 20 come from? Secondly, the traffic report states there has not been any accidents. We have referenced several in recent times, including significant accidents where a vehicle went through the wall of the VM, resulting in closure of School Lane for a number of hours. I dread to think what could have happened if anyone had been walking on the pavement at this time. The developer's design and access statement states the site is off Reynard Close to the west, which provides easy access via Old School Drive and School Lane to the surrounding towns. This clearly isn't a suitable access point to accommodate an additional 43% increase in traffic. As a local resident with a young family, traffic levels and the risk this delivers is a big worry for me, as it is to other residents. I urge for a deferment while the developer looks at something that can be done to reduce traffic load, as this is a byproduct of this overdevelopment on ill-suited road infrastructure. If not, I fear something will be approved and developed that will cause serious repercussions down the line.
Okay, thanks for your thanks for speaking, Michael. I'll come back to you once the vote. Did you want to see something now, or can I come back when the vote? Yeah. All right, Debbie. Good. Do we have Paula Kenny, please? Debbie, give him your time, please. Okay, Paula, you as well, you have 4 minutes, okay?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name's Paula Kenny and I live at 6B Old School Drive, and I represent the residents group in objection to this proposal. As residents, we are not opposed to the development of this land, but we expect the development to be similar in design and density to our neighbouring properties, and to include appropriate development of road infrastructure to accommodate the resulting traffic, which this proposal clearly does not. This is the 4th planning application submitted for this site, with 2 previous applications deferred by this planning committee, and the 3rd application subsequently approved without objection following a successful neighbour consultation process. The original developer was unable to proceed and the land sold to Storey Homes, who have submitted this application for 34 properties, and we find ourselves back here again. Whilst we acknowledge some improvement by Storey Homes to the overall layout, our previously raised concerns regarding build density and the resultant volume of traffic through a single point access have not been addressed. We also are concerned that whilst not the subject of this application, the applicant has secured an adjacent parcel of land and intends to build a similar number of properties again, with this development being accessed by the same inadequate road infrastructure. We maintain a holistic approach to this entire development should be taken, that the applicant should be required to submit a master plan with full neighbour consultation. In submitting this application, Storey Homes has not carried out meaningful consultation with neighbours, and this has resulted in the 29 neighbour objections being raised and 43 signatures to the residents' objection letter. While Storey Homes have stated in their design and access statement that face-to-face consultation was offered to local councillors and to SRBC, the neighbours who have to live with this development for the long term were not afforded this courtesy. Story Homes have stated that consultation has been carried out with local residents, but this consultation was in name only, with no face-to-face meetings. As neighbours were invited to make comments via an online portal, none of which appear to have been taken account of, which show, with the final design showing little difference to the pre-consultation design. In fact, Story Homes actually removed a second access point onto Rymer Grove from their website during the consultation process, showing their disregard for it. In their comments, each of the neighbours has raised concerns around build density and traffic, and many neighbours have requested the opportunity for face-to-face discussion, but there's been no subsequent contact from Story Homes. In fact, we suggest Story Homes are not interested in hearing or addressing neighbour concerns. Story Homes proudly state on their website that they recognise the importance of consultation with local communities, and development can be positive for everybody if carried out with the needs of the community in mind. Well, I'm afraid it doesn't seem that our concerns as residents have been considered at all by Story Homes. As such, we maintain that effective consultation as required by SRBC planning policy has not been held, and we request this planning committee defer their decision until neighbours have had the opportunity for meaningful consultation with the developer and the issues of density and traffic have been appropriately addressed. We request SRBC facilitate such consultation as they did for the previous application for this site, which was subsequently then approved. We hope to work with Story Homes to agree on a revised proposal which addresses our concerns and strongly request this planning committee defers any decision until neighbour consultation has concluded and a revised plan has been submitted. This has been a long and stressful process for residents, and from our previous experience, we know this planning committee will give a fair and considered hearing. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thanks for that, Paul. Right, okay, next we have County Councillor and Chair of Longton Parish Council, Graham Gooch. Okay, good evening, Councillor. You have 4 minutes, okay?
Thank you. Well, I won't rehearse what's been said by
Sorry?
I won't rehearse what's already been said.
Okay.
I shall make several points. In my submission, I think not enough has been said in the reports about the effect of the density on the traffic in there. I mean, you have the report prepared for the developers, and you'll see the photographs of that. The long shadows cast across, so that picture was obviously taken at dawn, possibly on a Sunday, and doesn't give a true picture of what the lane is like. Now, of course, I've read the Lancashire County Council Highways report that you have had in connection with this, and I have to say that it does not give a complete picture of the impact of this development. It states under the location heading clearly land to the east of Reynards Close, Longton, and confines comments to that very small area, making no comment about School Lane, into which all this increased traffic will be decanted. No incidents have reported in Reynards Close or Old School Drive, which is not surprising in a cul-de-sac, but you will have heard that the picture is rather different when it gets to School Lane. Now, I'm surprised by the section on the LCC report that says impact on highways, as it quotes the developer's own report. You'll see that in italics. And then underneath says, based on the information provided above, LCC could not refuse the development on traffic impacts ground. The LCC Highways appears to have just accepted what the developer said, and you may have wished to have an independent report from the LCC Highways rather than just accepting what the developer has said. Now, they've also used, once again, the North Preston system for doing this. As you know, North Preston is very different here. They built new roads there and widened the existing one. So I'd say it's probably not helpful to you to follow that. Now, as you'll know, there's a traffic regulation order on School Lane. It prohibits all motor vehicles except for access. Of course, access is to the school, the recreation ground, the Grove Park, the residential care home, the north entrance to the Brickcroft, the Longton Victory Memorial Recreation Ground, the Sports and Social Club, the bowling club, the tennis club and the football club, not forgetting the Women's Institute. So it's a really busy lane, and this traffic will all be decanted into that, which will then reach the confluence of Chapel Lane, where it will have to merge somehow into Liverpool Road. So I ask you to consider, I appreciate that development will go ahead, but I ask you to consider the density and the amount of traffic it will produce in School Lane.
Okay, thanks, County Councillor. There you are, ladies and gentlemen. We have the County Councillor giving LCC Highways some jip, and we have to deal with this at every committee meeting. So that is the objectors. We don't have any supporters on this application. Ward members, I must say, we did have one representation, but it was extremely late. We do have a deadline for people wishing to speak in favour. So, ladies and gentlemen, you do have a ward member who has your best interests at heart. However, she was 27 hours late because she said she didn't know that there was a deadline. So, and the rules are the rules, and that's how I work. Yeah, I follow the rules, and that's so. Yes, it's Councillor Buttery is your ward member, but unfortunately she was late making representations. Right. So, do I have the applicant or the applicant's agent, Charlotte Fowler? Yes, Councillor Smith. Just bear with me. It's rather unusual, but just take a seat just for a minute. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. I must object strongly on behalf of Councillor Buttery.
Okay, I've heard you. That's it. That's enough. Thank you.
Chairman, you have not heard what I've got to say. You are breaking the rules of this council.
I beg your pardon?
The constitution of this council allows the ward councillor to speak. There is nothing in the constitution with regard to timescales. We know that. It says so. Now, it also says in the constitution, Chairman, that you do have a right to say something afterwards. It said the chairman of the planning committee has his discretion to vary these rules. Chairman, it says nowhere in this constitution about 2 days. Councillor Buttery should have the right to speak on behalf of her residents, and I object strongly to it. Thank you.
Objection noted. Taz, would you like to...
Thank you, Chair. So in terms of registering to vote, there are rules in the Constitution which stipulate that an individual, whether it be a member of the public, whether it be a ward member, have to register to speak within by Tuesday, if the actual meeting's on a Thursday, so Tuesday at 5 p.m. And my understanding from what the Chair is saying is that actually Councillor Buttery did not register to speak within that time space. So that's obviously what Chair is referring to. And it's that Chair's discretion to allow the variation if he wishes. And obviously he has decided not to at this stage.
I know the chairman has discretion, but what part in the rule does it say that? There were some different rules, Chair, that came in during COVID that did allow the chairman for 2 days. We are not in COVID restrictions at the moment, and we go back to 34.1.c, which allows the councillor to speak. That's in the Constitution, Chair.
Right, fractious. Anyway, my decision stands. Right,
Sorry,
Charlotte.
Chair. I've the greatest respect, and it is the greatest respect.
You don't have the greatest respect.
You've got it wrong, Chair. You really have got it wrong.
No, right, fine. Noted, as I said earlier. Charlotte, I do apologise about that. If you'd like to... I
apologise as well, Charlotte, but it needed saying.
If you'd like to make your representations, you have 4 minutes, okay? Thank you.
Good evening, members. My name's Charlotte Fowler, planning agent for this application. Thank you to the officers for the comprehensive report that we've all had ahead of this meeting. And this application proposes the development of 34 new homes, access roads, parking, landscaping, tree planting and amenity open space. The application is for this site alone and has been designed as a natural extension from Reynard Close and a rounding off of this phase of the site allocation. And just to confirm, I'm acting on behalf of Storey Homes, who have a deal on the land, and it's unrelated to the previous developer and those proposals that have been before this committee another time. So in summary of the detailed planning submission and the officer's report, we would say that the proposed development is acceptable for the following reasons. Firstly, the site forms part of the allocation for residential development for a total of 83 dwellings. Secondly, it has already been granted planning permission previously. Thirdly, the site is in a highly sustainable location within a short walking distance of the primary school and other amenities and village facilities on School Lane. Fourthly, the application will deliver a mix of homes comprising 1 through to 6 bedroom homes, a mix of styles, and includes 10 affordable homes to address affordable housing needs specifically in Lonton, for example, young adults seeking first step on the property ladder. Fifthly, the application will protect Hallpool Brook with an area of amenity open space to the south of the site with wildflower meadow and tree planting. And there will be a financial contribution of over £50,000 towards long-term playing fields. Sixthly, the application is going to deliver biodiversity net gain with the planting of 53 new trees, wildflower meadow planting, as I've said, and bat and bird boxes across the development. None of the existing trees will be removed as part of this scheme. And seventhly, the homes will meet and exceed council policy on sustainability and energy efficiency with solar panels on each property and electric vehicle charge points. And finally, there are no technical objections, as we've heard, from statutory consultees or highways grounds for refusal. Now, obviously, we've heard from residents and, you know, we appreciate and have had that feedback about the highways impact. And the figures quoted about an increase, the estimated trip rate will be 20 additional trips in the AM peak and 23 in the PM peak, which does come from a database that has taken trip rates from developments based on their size, type of houses, locations. The surrounding estate has been designed to accommodate this development, and we know that Auburn Avenue and Reynard Close are to be adopted highway by LCC soon. And I would just like to say specifically on the parking congestion on School Lane, I think the fact that this site is so close to School Lane, it will generate trips by walking much more than someone getting in their car to drive to those facilities that we've heard listed that are on School Lane, the primary school, bowling club, church. And again, we do understand the concerns about density and the impact that would have on highways impacts, but we have made a robust submission that has shown analysis of the density of Longton across the whole of the village, and it is in keeping with the density of the local area and the wider village. So the application will contribute to the sustainability of the Longton village, and we would ask that members are able to vote to approve the application. Thank you.
Okay, Charlotte, thanks for your presentation. Debbie, would you like to come in on several of the points that have been raised this evening for us, please?
I'm not saying several. I've got 2 points to come back on. One is density that Charlotte's just touched on. Mrs. Hall had concerns that we were comparing density against the borough average of 35, which is fair enough. So comparing it to the immediate surroundings, Auburn Avenue is around 15 dwellings per hectare, and that's the housing land supply average for site V, which is the bit that's already been done, the bit that's proposed tonight, and the extra bit that's not been developed. The site itself will be 23 or thereabouts dwellings per hectare, and the wider surroundings of the estate, the whole estate, is 22 dwellings per hectare. So it's about a third less than the borough average. It's slightly higher than the housing land supply suggests, but it reflects the immediate surroundings. You've also got to bear in mind that because sites V, M and X amount for about 200 and odd dwellings, 211 circa, and that's a base point. If the density on this is reduced to such a significant amount, that precedent affects the housing land supply for all 3 of those sites. And potentially that would affect the council's housing land supply. The land for that's got to be found somewhere, and if they're not on this site, then they'll have to be somewhere else. This is an allocated housing site, and it's allocated in the local plan following examination, and it is suitable for housing. Just secondly, to confirm to Councillor Gooch, all the photographs you've seen today I took, and I absolutely didn't do them at dawn. During the working day, usually mid-morning is around the time that I'm knocking about doing photographs, but it certainly wasn't at dawn. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that, Debbie. Thanks for your help. Martin Nugent, did you want to speak? No. Okay. Right, I'll open up to committee. Councillor Flannery.
Thanks, Chair. Right. Carmel, Michael and Paula, well done for your contributions. Let me just make an observation. I'm going to be very, very objective here. It's a hard job chairing this committee. And it's not just tonight. It's over years and years. And there's fairness got to be applied. I understand what Councillor Smith was saying. But let me tell you, that's a hard job. Let me also reassure you, and Councillor Buttery is a good councillor. I know she's got your interests at heart. So rest assured she would have spoke well on your behalf. I've got a few observations on this, and as one of my colleagues, Councillor Lomax, said before, this is one of your fairest committees here. There's a lot of respect in the group, and we come to this with an open mind. So we always encourage people to come and speak, because the residents to us are key. We have the policy, and the officers have got a really tough job with policy, but the resident voice and how it affects your life is very, very important to us. So this is a housing allocation site. This site's got history. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31. And I do remember this. And I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31. And they worked well with them. And I do remember this. And I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31. And they worked well with them. And I do remember this. And I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31, and they worked well with them. I do remember this, and I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31, and they worked well with them. I do remember this, and I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31, and they worked well with them. I do remember this, and I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31, and they worked well with them. I do remember this, and I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31, and they worked well with them. I do remember this, and I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31, and they worked well with them. I do remember this, and I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31, and they worked well with them. I do remember this, and I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31, and they worked well with them. I do remember this, and I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31, and they worked well with them. I do remember this, and I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31, and they worked well with them. I do remember this, and I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31, and they worked well with them. I do remember this, and I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31, and they worked well with them. I do remember this, and I went back to the applicant and they reduced it to 14. This site's got history. We deferred it. It was deferred once before when it was 30, I think it was 31, and they worked well with them. I do remember
unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134, 81, and West I think that was unanimous. Advancing on the communities to 14, set for history. In favour of the face, 134,